Hello people! In October, I did a series of live streams on a fresh account to learn what the new player experience is like for Aura Kingdom in 2023. Because Aura Kingdom is an old MMO, and it might feel pretty daunting to come into it this late. My experience with Aura Kingdom on a fresh account was that they have done a great job of changing things up for the new player experience over the years. A lot of things that I struggled with on my main account in the past have been addressed to get new players moving through to the fun parts more quickly. What's changed? Mostly the experience curves, the quest rewards, and newbie presents. Now you can get right up to level 99 on the main quest without grind, and those quests will provide you with the supplies you need to prepare your level 90 gear, as well as presents of functional gear that you can fortify and use. It used to feel like the main quest would take you up to around 80 and then drop you off a cliff. The whole experience of leveling up has been smoothed out, so that doesn't happen anymore. They also provide you with a great base of supplies that you can use to make it even more comfortable. My original script for this video was over half an hour long, so I decided to chop it into pieces, and then ended up adding a bunch more anyway. Whoops. Today we're just going to talk a bit about what makes each class fun, to help you pick, and a quick overview of the 5 starter eidolons to get you going, and then a little discussion about what it means to play a game that is 10 years old. I'd really like it if you listened to that last part especially, because I think there's a lot of things to consider when playing an older MMO, and I'd really like to hear what you think about the points as well. So, on to the first thing, picking a class. There's 20, that's a lot, so a lot of people's first question is, what is the strongest class? And the community generally gives the recommendations of Starcaller, Sorcerer, or Lancer. Personally, I think there's some other classes that are being severely undersold because just people haven't played them as much recently, and that's the Stellar Saphir, Whipmaster, and Wizard. But when people shout classes at you like that, it doesn't really give you any info about what makes those classes great, or how they feel to play. So I've taken some time to think about what I like about each class, and the drawbacks I feel while playing them to give you a quick introduction to them all. Guardian. It's intended as the tank in the game, but the meta never really developed to need tanks. It has a special skill, Roar, that allows all party members to get boss drops without actually running the dungeons. So this is common subclass for highly geared carries. When someone says Roar carry, they mean you can just wait at the start inside the dungeon and you'll still get the boss drops. It was just announced this week that this class will be getting an overhaul soon. This will be huge, including changed skills and animations as well as unlocking all body types, so I don't want to touch too much more on this because it's probably going to change. Ravager. It's got great self-sustain, and though it's intended as a melee class, the fire bounce path has absurd range. It's the best mob gathering skill in the game in my opinion, and is also the class that I beat Awakening on Scrub on. Duelist has a lot of dots, and has what I believe to be the highest potential one-hit nuke skill in the game, though it does require a lot of careful setup. It also has a lifesteal node on its envoy path, meaning that you don't need to fixate on getting a lifesteal sub-weapon for self-sustain. It's also got the worst AoE of any class in the game. Brawler has the excellent self-heals that use stacks generated by compact skills to also buff and heal you when released. It's also got the snappiest gap closer. Personally, I play Brawler as fire element, but I think it has more potential going physical. Though building that way will be challenging for new players, as there are few good options for free-to-play players to start building physical at low levels. Ronin is perhaps the classiest sword in the game. It's got surprising AoE, nice gap closers, and the Dark Spear Raid skill, which allows you to quickly input it 3 times with no cooldown. Every skill you use generates spirit, which you can then activate at any time with Soul Blade, even when the bar isn't full, and that will significantly buff all of your skills until the bar is done. It also activates the use of Soul Storm for further buffs and debuffs. But the OGs will remember the original Soul Storm, so don't ask them what it used to be like, they can get touchy about it. Holy Sword can kinda go 2 different directions. You've got the big holy nuke where you wipe out everything all at once, which is pretty fun, but also very RNG reliant on your procs. Or you can go all lightning and focus on the bounce skill. If you watched my stream, you know how much I loved fire bounce. Holy Sword's lightning bounce isn't as wide range, but I'd say it's second best. Lancer is widely recommended to new players as a not too challenging to understand and very strong class. The Hymn of Doom skill is great and fun to plonk down on a boss or a group of mobs and just watch them all die. Starcaller. is another class that everybody recommends for noobs. It's technically melee, but you've got basically a set of melee holy skills and lightning range skills, and you'll probably want to pick one side to specialize in. Every third hit is buffed, and once you've built up the full gauge by using those buffed skills, you'll get 30 seconds of God mode. The cannon mode for lightning skills is generally pretty small range and small AoE, but the nuke skill Nebula more than makes up for it with its large, persistent AoE. The downside for this class is that you have to play as the female kiddo body type, and at time of publishing there is only one free costume for them, and that's in the LP store. If you're free to play and you care a lot about looks, this may not be a good class for you. Whipmaster is another class I think people are really sleeping on. Blood Rush release allows for ridiculous multi-hits on Blood Whip, especially when mixed with more Zeals. This is my second best class, so maybe I'm biased. A major downside is actually the sound effects, in my opinion. It used to sound like a wet noodle, which was a little pathetic, but yeah, fine. But they've adjusted it, and now I find it to be extremely loud, and it hurts my delicate little ears. My favorite skill on the Dragon Nunchaku class is the Big Icy Saws. For a melee class, this has a huge AoE and field of effect that will saw away at mobs that enter the range. Its class mechanic involves a plus-minus charge bar that you can activate at different point levels for move speed and various other buffs depending on how many points you've got once every 15 seconds. However, Nunchaku suffers even more than Star Color as far as costumes go, with no free-to-play options at all, so if that's important to you, keep it in mind. Next, we're moving on to the ranged classes. Gunslinger is a very fast class. Most people play it as Storm and use the weapon mastery track to summon tons of little tornadoes that give it surprisingly large AoE. It has traps you can place on boss spawn points to debuff them right away if you can memorize their exact spawn locations, and it also has Charm, which you can use on mob-type enemies to attract the attention of groups. This can help a lot if you're just a little undergeared and need something else to take the heat for a while running alone. Grenadier has a dark history. Don't ask. It's one of the few classes with a bounce skill. Its specialty is the ability to summon a turret or a healing crystal, but this is another class that's going to be receiving a huge rework soon, so I suspect that saying too much here would be moot. Same as Guardian, really huge rework. Could be the dawn of a new era for Gren. Bard is the healing class, but don't be fooled. Bard healing in Aura Kingdom comes with huge buffs for damage, making it very viable as a DPS class, and also an easy choice for subclass. Yes, nearly everyone uses it, but there's a reason for that. Each time you use a healing skill, even as a subclass, you build stacks that increase your damage. When in doubt, pick Bard. Remember, you can change your subclass free anytime, it just has a 10-minute cooldown. Wizard recently got a huge buff. All of its attacks are faster, stronger, and you can easily build up elemental etches to stack your damage even further. Wizard's specialty is that they have 400% crit damage cap at base. For reference, other classes generally start at 300%, so they have ridiculous potential once you start getting to later game. Sorcerer is one of the most highly recommended classes, but personally my biggest gripe with Source is that the sound effects for their attacks aren't very satisfying. Otherwise, they have the most debuffs, the best party cleanse, lots of lifesteal and skills, and plus they just look classy in general. Ranger is actually my OG main. I really like the charge shot mechanic because of how it feels to play, but the truth is, this class really needs a buff. For new players, it has the benefit of not needing any accuracy support due to fully charged shots having extra accuracy, which is something you might struggle with on your first character around 95 to S5. Reaper is a great class if you feel like you don't want to fight alone. You can summon 3 little guys from your choice of 6, each providing you with buffs. This is one of the classes I've actually played the least, but my understanding is that it's pretty tanky and very comfortable, and you have friends. Shinobi is another top choice for subclass. It has great debuffing capability and a teleport behind you skill that guarantees back strikes, so... well, be careful, it ignores ground height differences, so I once teleported myself into the top of a tree. Its class specialty is the ability to summon one of 2 Shadow Warriors of your choice that will follow up some of your attacks with special extra effects. Rockstar is the only class you can't pick at the start. Sorry. In order to unlock this class, you need to reach level S1, which is 101 on any other class, or use a boost card, which requires you to level up to 60 on any other class. They're also a paid item. Rockstars also start at level 75 regardless of whether or not you use a boost card or not. You're not missing much though, it's generally not well liked. Personally, I find you're kind of railroaded into very technical rotations to be able to make use of the class's special skills, which ends up splitting you over too many elements, or limited to just 2 to 3 skills to avoid messing up your note palette. Personally, I ended up picking just lightning and only using those skills. However, you can play music for other players in Navia with it. Someone once played me some Linkin Park in Navia and it was great. Stellar Saphir is the most recent class to be released, so we've had the least amount of time to experiment with it so far, but it's got an excellent range of great party-wide buffs that mean you can laser focus on the kind of support you specifically need for each situation. And that is on top of the fact that it's got huge AoEs, making cleaning up groups of mobs a cinch. Plus it's flashy. As soon as you've finished picking your class, the next thing you're going to have to do is pick your starter eidolon. These eidolons are stuck in your bar permanently. I've made a video called Eidolon 101 that's still relevant details for today, but at the time, one of the starter eidolons hadn't been released yet. So, really light touch on them here, but if you want any more information about what stars are, or how to make them stronger, anything like that, check out my Eidolons 101 video. Here's the quick summary of what they are for you to get started now. Seraph, he's got tanky stars with a received damage debuff. He's not highly recommended basically for anyone. Merrily, she's got move speed and lifesteal stars, a little bit of ice damage support and healing. She's honestly a great choice for any class. In late game, having move speed stars on your starter eidolon is nice. That doesn't necessarily make sense right now, but it will once you learn how great move speed is. Grim has fire and damage stars. Pretty viable as a fire eidolon and only recommended if you plan to play a fire class. Alessa, she's got a normal attack speed buff and a double attack chance. She's got holy element support in her active skills, and as I've been saying, only really recommended if you plan to play an actual holy class. Alina has damage and lifesteal stars, a received damage debuff, a little bit healing, and a fairly long stun. She's great to use on any class, any element. Just note that for the other 4 starter eidolons that we've talked about already, you're going to get some items that will allow you to activate their stars in the packs. She requires a special item that only she drops through links. Chiyu has the same issue with this special item that only she dropped for activating stars, and she's got dark damage stars as well as damage versus dark target stars. Her buff skill is a shield support, and she's got a little bit of dark damage support. If you're playing a dark class, she's not a terrible choice. From here on, this is my opinion, but it's discussion that I think is worth having, especially about playing an old game, and I'd really like to hear your opinions or how you feel about it. Is Aura Kingdom worth starting in 2023, going on to 2024? You already know you're not going to get an unbiased answer from me. I mean, I'm making this video and the rest of the videos in this series to help you start. I say yes. I find combat fun and satisfying, and for a game that is about 10 years old, I think the graphics stand up really well too. There's tons of systems for you to get into if you like, and they all have benefits for combat. So if you're looking to do something for hours and really sink your teeth into it, you can choose to do all sorts of different things and still feel like you're making valuable progress. The downside of that is if you're not really interested in getting into achievements, gathering items, card duels, collecting eidolons, there's tons of flat stats on the table that you won't have. Please don't run away after hearing that. Most older MMOs suffer from this kind of system creep. If you like being overpowered, this also means there's tons of things you can do to be stronger than the content compared to when we first got to it back in the day. Besides, there's barely any good options for anime MMOs right now anyway. Your options are mostly quite old games. I'm not gonna say that I've played every single one either. Maybe you're just looking for something free to play to scratch that itch until Blue Protocol is finally in English? They still don't have a date for that. Give Aura Kingdom a shot. But one other thing I think worth mentioning is the monetization and how the age of the game affects that aspect. Aura Kingdom's original server opened in late 2013. When it comes to games trying to pry money out of your hands, things have changed really rapidly since then, but Aura Kingdom still has a lot of traits that resemble that original time period. Aura Kingdom does have a gambling table. It has minimal animation, no big fireworks, no excessive sound effects. The tokens for it are also accessible for free-to-play players. Gacha, or lucky packs for eidolons or costumes, do not have fancy sound effects or animations. You right-click to open, same as any weapon box. Most new costumes are in the cash shop and sold directly, though some are in random packs. For example, at time of writing, the new mount is a lucky pack, but all of the costumes are direct sales. I don't want to say that these elements make this cash store less predatory for everyone. We do still have FOMO-based, time-limited sales, but it doesn't try to play on your anticipation or trigger dopamine the same way that modern gacha games do. You can also use an item from the in-game currency shop to not even look at the gambling table while rolling if you don't want to see it. Basically, this is me calling out Tower of Fantasy and Genshin here. If you know my history with Genshin, you know that I have made poor decisions and am not immune to the call of the gacha. I get it. For some people it's just safer to not have to look at that. So, here's my final word, and I hope you can feel comfortable in that this part is the least biased I can possibly be about a game that I love this much. If you're debating it, give Aura Kingdom a try, and don't spend anything. I find the combat to be inherently enjoyable, and I think a lot of other players do too, and that's one of Aura Kingdom's biggest draws. If I didn't, you wouldn't see me here with every single class at level 101. At least. I like the community, rapscallions they are, and if I didn't, I wouldn't be helping as a volunteer moderator since 2020. You're not going to hit a gameplay wall where you feel like spending money will be the solution, at least not anytime soon. You get everything you need to get yourself right up to the special challenge to get to level 101, and it will be a rewarding challenge to pass on your own that is perfectly doable. For level 100, you won't be grinding at all. After that, you probably will have to in order to progress. If you don't like grind, this kind of MMO is probably not best for you. The important thing is whether or not you're having fun. Forget about sunk cost. If you are having fun, it's time well spent, and once you're no longer having fun, it's time to move on. At the end of all of that, if you've gotten this far, you really may as well give it a shot. In the time you were watching this video, you could have already been at level 10, and I'd really love to see you there. Next time I'm going to talk about the stuff that I cut from this video. Leveling up, how to find things, where to get more eidolons in early game, what's worth using your free resources on as a new player, where to spec your stats and gear to use. Then the third episode will be on more unique stats that Aura Kingdom uses, like detail damage, elemental damage types, crit damage and crit damage caps, pen and reinforcement, blood armor and armor piercing, and so on. After that, I'd like to get into how all that side stuff contributes into your combat stats. Anyway, that's all for today then. Thank you so much for watching. Consider a like and subscribe if you want to see the upcoming guides, and I'll be taking next week off, since, holidays, but I have something a little special planned for the new year as well. Take care, and see you in 2024!